Well, welcome everybody to Mind Your Own Business. We have a very special episode today. It's all about being mindful of risk. With the crazy environment we're in now, the risks that are emerging aren't ones that we're used to. And we're very lucky today to have David Perks. He's an agency partner, an expert in risk and risk management. He's an insurance advisor and all around great guy. So David, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Steve.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, on our program, we really try to look around the corner and see what's coming at us. And you are in a unique position in that you talk to business owners all the time. And you have probably a lot of leading indicators as to what's happening in the marketplace. So thinking about risks that we as business people might be confronting this year, 2022, which we start in about 10 days. What do you see?
We are seeing, I would say, three main things, Steve. We're seeing a large increase in risk from employment practice liability insurance, mostly due to the concern with COVID and the mandates coming down by the federal government, and also mandates that insureds companies are making. So there is a lot of concern from the perspective of employment practice liability insurance for wrongful termination type of suits. And then we're also seeing, which is also in combination of directors and officers insurance, potential suits brought against the companies for their financial decisions. So that's the first main thing. We're seeing a lot of other concerns from cyber insurance. Mm-hmm. There's been a large inflation or risk in the cyber market. Ever since COVID began, we're seeing lots of social engineering claims. We're seeing cyber ransom claims. We are also seeing, other type of issues with regard to cyber, and then also excess market. So, and I can dive into a little bit more detail on each, but the excess market is also the concern. We're seeing nuclear verdicts. We are seeing, what is basically considered 10 million or above in claims, and the top 100 verdicts back in 2015, those combined were about 64 million. Back in 2019, those are now on average 214 million. So the cyber for the excess market, there's a lot of concern from the insurance carriers that what used to be a smaller claim is now much larger. And those factors are, social inflation, social mistrust of corporations we're seeing. So those are kind of the three main things that we're seeing in the market.
Okay, let's dive into each one of those. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take them slightly out of order because I think the first one, cyber, is a trend that's magnifying. It's more and more in the news. So as a business owner, if you could just sketch for me, what do I need to be mindful of as I think about how my company is covered, but also touch a little bit on the threats? I mean, what's really happening out there? Because I've heard a few of these stories and they're almost too strange to believe.
Yeah, so since COVID, we've seen, ransomware has increased roughly 80%, and those are now being answered. As far as insureds are definitely answering those attacks, if you will. And I've seen $40-50 million ransomware attacks where they're shutting down people's systems. And in the market, we've heard of many of them from, I'm not going to go through each individual one, but, everybody's heard about those type of ransom attacks, cyber attacks, where people are, basically saying that they're going to shut down their systems, and, they're offering, up to, demands up to $100 million is coming down the pipeline. I think we've seen as large as 70 million. So making sure that those companies have the proper policies, procedures in place to protect. We partner with those carriers. We partner with the insureds in evaluating their cyber risks. And then in the marketplace, you can't find an insurance carrier that isn't going to offer terms on somebody that doesn't have what we call as MFA, which is a multi-verification authorization system. So if an insured does not have an MFA, then most insurance carriers are either going to non-renew or just not, write the policy if it's a new prospect. So, and then we're seeing cyber increase. Cyber has been historically a very inexpensive insurance coverage. As low as $1,000 for some insureds, depending on the industry and the limits, but we're seeing increases quite a bit. We're probably seeing, 50 to 60% increases alone in cyber premium, just because, the insureds are really getting hit hard by cyber attacks this year.
So as a business owner, my first concern would be about my technology. Is it secure enough to even get insurance, which is frightening, because most of us didn't get into business to buy technology and stay on top of it. So we really need to look at that fast and have an assessment done of whether we're safe, if you will. Second, we need to have enough insurance to mitigate the risk of us being shut down by ransomware or something. Then you mentioned a social piece of it. There is a social attack as well. Tell me what that is.
So not only are we seeing the ransom, but we're also seeing an increase in social engineering type of claims. So somebody impersonating either a CEO, a CFO, or a third party. We are seeing a large increase in those type of attacks. Whether it's somebody sending false wire transfer instructions to an insured, where an insured thinks it's the individual that they were previously speaking to, or it's a CEO that's not the CEO acting as somebody overseas. So we're seeing those type of claims quite a bit, and typically a bank is not going to cover those type of situations. So that is covered under social engineering, under the cyber policy, and it just depends on the limits that the insured wants to purchase. But we are seeing, I've seen, as low as $25,000 claims up to $1.4 million claims where, we're seeing somebody, wire multiple transactions, or, seeing checks wash, things like that. So that's a big increase.
So if I need help, no matter where I am in the country, if I need help, I'm worried about this because this is a big deal. You're talking about my bank account and my operating system, which is my livelihood. What do I do?
You reach out to your insurance advisor or the Mahoney Group, and what we can do is review your current policies, review your current risks. We can partner with you. We can partner with the insurance carrier, or we also have our own insurer compliance group, and we can evaluate where the gaps are, the risks are, and we can advise you on your risk. And then we can advise you on the limits that you need as a business and what we're seeing in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. This is one of those things that if you don't know what you don't know, but when you find out, it's ugly. So it's really important, I think, to address this one quickly.
Absolutely. And it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, what size of a business you are. I mean, you could be a small 1 to 2 person operation, or you could be as large as a couple thousand employees. But if you don't have cyber insurance, in my opinion, I always say this, it's not about if it's going to happen, it's about when it's going to happen, when you're going to have a cyber incident, whether it's cyber ransom, some sort of social engineering type of claim. So it's important to get control of that pretty quickly. And even if you do have a policy, it's important to review those policies to make sure that your sublimits are up to adequate insurance limits to what we're seeing in the market.
Yeah. So let's go to the umbrella, and we'll leave the employment piece, which can be seen politically. And so I want to deal with that one very sensitively. So you talked about the umbrella, which, as I understand it, is sort of the umbrella insurance I buy for my business to cover accidents and other things. Maybe talk about what umbrella is and then why I should be worried, what you're seeing that's new.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing that's new is basically what the market is, or what the insurance carriers are seeing is, especially even after COVID, it's even been ramped up even more, is the social mistrust of corporations or large corporations, and what juries are finding above and beyond what we've seen in the past. So what I mentioned earlier is, maybe back in 2015, Wall Street Journal always announces or releases the top 100 verdicts that a jury finds. And those claims were on average $64 million back in 2015. Well, in 2019, the increase was up to 214 million. And what we're seeing is those nuclear verdicts obviously increasing substantially, but what I've been reading more recently is a high trend of $300 million plus verdicts that these juries are finding on what normally would not be anywhere close to that type of verdict. So it really makes the insurance carriers nervous about where things are. And what we're seeing in the market is, what insurance carriers may have offered in the past, let's just say $100 million umbrella for $100,000. Well, they're shrinking their capacity because they're getting hit more regularly, and they may only offer a $50 million umbrella, which would extend over your auto, depending on the risk. It would extend over your general liability, your auto, sometimes, obviously employer's liability, which is your work comp. And then in some cases, it would be over your pollution, your professional liability insurance. So those is basically the simplicity of the umbrella. And what it does is extend over those policies. And what insurance carriers are doing now is shrinking capacity and increasing rates or cost. So what may have been, a $50 million, or $100 million umbrella back then for $100,000 is now maybe a $50 million umbrella, and you may be spending $300,000, or we would have to layer it through multiple different insurance carriers in order to get that limit you may have had in the past.
So given this social mistrust and juries now awarding larger verdicts than in the past, as a business owner, I have to take that into account and have that conversation with you or your peers to talk about what's my risk as a business.
Correct. And what we've been doing is partnering with our insureds, obviously not only to find capacity to make sure that we can find it at the right cost, but we're also partnering with our insureds even more than we have in the past, and looking at their policies, their procedures, their employee handbooks, their safety manuals, their risks. And then also, we're offering additional defensive driving courses for free. We're offering additional safety classes for free to our insureds, and making sure that, safety and risk is top of mind for their companies, because the last thing we want to do is have a loss that either we don't have enough limits for, or we don't have the right policies or procedures in place for our insureds. And in my opinion, and even in a good attorney's opinion, it would be our insureds' written policies and procedures are always our best insurance defense, or our defense in terms of a large claim. So making sure that we have those documented, and that we're partnering with our insureds on a regular basis to make sure that they're as best protected as possible.
And I guess as a business owner, I've really got to be mindful of that, plus the culture that I've created, and to some degree how well I've helped our team understand the vulnerability of the company. Because like you said, one of these events that you don't anticipate it could put a company out of business.
Absolutely. Yeah. It
Yeah.
definitely could. And that is the concern, is that, as agents, I mean, it is always very difficult to offer, high enough limits to our insureds in the event of, a verdict like we've seen, or the verdicts that we're seeing in the market is, these $10 million plus claims, or these verdicts that are coming down that are, above and beyond, again, what we've seen in the industry, especially in the last couple of years. They're increasing substantially.
Yeah. So first, I've got to make sure that my technology is safe. Next, I got to make sure that my company is, insured against mistakes, whether it be an auto accident or something else. Now we come to the dicey one, the one that's a little bit harder to sort of manage. With COVID, federal mandates, in some cases, states saying you can't do what the Fed said, local, here in Tucson, the mayor of Tucson says, no, we won't mind what the state says. It says we won't mind what the Fed says. Plus you've got the insurance companies, and then you got juries. I mean, my goodness, what a seat to be in figuring this out. So looking around the corner, do you have any practical advice for a business owner as they navigate this storm of what should we do to A, operate a business that's profitable and thus secure for our employees, 2, serve our customers, 3, do it in a way that's mindful and fair, yet minimize our risk? And then what can you do to sort of backstop me as I try to do this? And I know this is sensitive because depending on, unfortunately, safety in COVID has been politicized, but as a business owner, it's really about, if you don't preserve cash is the oxygen of a business and it dies without it. And so how, I know this is a crazy question, but what the heck do we do?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to partner with the right insurance agent, to partner with somebody that understands your risks, and understand, what you're going through, and to make sure that you have somebody that evaluates your insurance policies, and to, understand where your gaps in coverages are, or the, potential higher risk than what you may have. Whether you have $1 million cyber policy and we recommend you need 10, it just depends. But I think make sure that you, you consult with somebody that can understand your business, and can understand the insurance and the insurance policies, and to partner with the right agent that can evaluate this, as much as needed. I mean, we're partnering with our insureds, in some cases monthly, some cases quarterly. It just depends on their needs, but making sure that we navigate these changing times with our insureds and with your insurance agent, to make sure that, you're fully aware of what is going on in the marketplace.
So you've talked a lot about collaboration and level of support. So here I am, I'm in business. And I'm not in the risk business, and I'm operating my business, and I've got to come up with policies and procedures around what to do if someone has COVID, what to do about testing, what to do about vaccinated versus non-vaccinated, and so on. How do you work with me on that? And how do I know I'm doing, and I don't mean the right thing ethically and morally, but the right thing legally, so that we are in sync with this sort of at odds legal structure we have?
Absolutely. So we partner with a group called Insure Compliance. They're exclusive to us, and what they do is review your safety manuals, your employee manuals, and they update them as needed to you. And we make sure that you're up to date on what is current in the marketplace to best protect your business. And then obviously we look at other options with them, whether it's OSHA 30 training, OSHA 10 training, whether it's defensive driving courses, whether it's, cyber awareness, we're all well read as insurance agents, so we know what's going on in the marketplace. And there's also availability through us to get consistent emails or consistent literature on what is going on, whether it's cyber, whether it's employment practice liability, whether it's the excess umbrella market with these nuclear verdicts. So we definitely try and make sure that we, fine tune the information for our insureds and make sure that, one, they're well read and up to date on things, but two, we're up to date on what's going on in the market.
Now, one of the things you said, and you've been incredibly helpful. I mean, I've got, probably 30 things to make sure I check, but you talked about wrongful discharge, which is something that when there's a claim like that, I would personally, as an owner, feel like I did something wrong, even if I didn't. I mean, it's sort of like you're not treating people well, which we're all good people trying to, treat others correctly. Talk a little bit about what's going on there and what are the forces at work in sort of the employee-employer landscape.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of wrongful termination, sexual discrimination, age, race discrimination claims with cyber. I mean with COVID, excuse me. That is definitely something that is, I think in the marketplace is higher than what it used to be. Employment practice liability insurance has been around for, I think going on about 30 years, but it's a lot more relevant with COVID. It's also a lot more relevant with the way things are going and the way that, the market is with the labor force. Obviously there's a labor shortage and there's a lot of people not either wanting to work or not wanting to work for the, the price that they may have made in the past. So we're seeing a lot of, frivolous and, termination suits, wrongful hire suits or things like that. So we're seeing a lot more of that. People trying to take advantage of the insurance carriers or the insureds. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that is definitely something that is one of those hot topics that, along with cyber and along with excess market, that is, we're seeing more of it, and I expect in 2022 to see a lot more of it as these, mandates go through and as people, may continue not to want to work as much as they used to in the past.
Yeah, well, and I know one of the things that's happened, and this is a little off topic, is the number of EIN numbers requested from the Fed has gone through the roof. So people are forming their own businesses. Could be a side hustle, could be my main job now. I might have one or two of those. So two questions there. If I just started my business and I just got my EIN, when is the right time to have a conversation about business insurance? Because with all these new individuals out there, solopreneurs, in many cases doing this, as part of something else, as a part of two more things, should I jump in quickly, or is that something that I should wait a year? I mean, talk to me a little bit about, all these new business people.
Sorry about that.
You okay?
Yeah, so I was sitting still too long.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's always important to sit down with your insurance agent and let them advise you on all the coverages that are available and let them price those coverages out. And then, let you as the new business owner determine what your risks are, what you can afford, and what you're willing to insure and not insure. So, as your agent, I would go through every single type of coverages. We would get quotes on every single, type of insurance risk, if you will, and then let you make the determination on what you want to insure. Because, obviously I don't want to make insurance poor, but as an insurance advisor, I want to make sure that you're aware of what we're seeing and you're aware of, what your risks are, and that you're, willing either to self-insure that, that cyber liability, or self-insure the risk of having a wrongful termination claim. But I just want to make sure, as your insurance advisor, that you are aware of those risks and you can make the determination on what you purchase or not purchase.
Yeah. So it sounds like if I'm a new solopreneur, say I'm doing graphic art or I'm doing, some other pursuit, there are a lot of exposures there from copyright, intellectual property, on and on and on. I should have a conversation with you, and it might not cost a lot, but it could save me a lot, is what it sounds like, particularly in an environment that's just extraordinarily litigious right now.
It is. You're right. It's a very litigious society. It's a very litigious time in the world, if you will. And you're right. It's important to sit down and talk to your insurance agent and make sure that you're aware of what your risks are and what your limits are and what you have coverage for in a story, or in a claim example. I always say, it's difficult to say what you have coverage for sometimes given a claim example, but it's easy for us to go through as your insurance advisor and telling you, where your coverages are and where they're not. And so that's very important.
So just to summarize then, and I appreciate all the time today. I know you are very, very busy. First, I've got to be concerned about my technology and guard that against attack, as well as, people getting into my bank account and sending my cash reserves off without them being protected. Two, I've really got to be careful of what sort of liability I may have if there's a mistake or an accident at my company, because the settlements on those or the verdicts are much higher than they used to be. So I may be underinsured. A lot of us have that on our houses where, we've got to have them, reevaluated. And then finally, given this sort of employee-employer COVID sort of tension, there are mistakes that could be made. And even if you didn't make a mistake, you could, be sued for something that, it's going to cost you. Having that kind of protection would be important. Did I touch them all correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is exactly right. I think those three things are vital for an insured or a company, regardless of size. And those are the things that, until more recently, some insureds would just not purchase as regularly, or would think of them as their day-to-day or their annual policy. But, we are definitely seeing insureds being more aware of them, and definitely seeing insureds purchase them more on a more regular basis than we did in the past. But again, like we all say, is not insurance. Not every insurance advisor is built the same way. Not every insurance carrier is built the same way with their policies and
Right.
forms. So it's important to partner with the right agent, and it's important to partner with the right insurance carrier to make sure that you have the coverages that you are, expecting to have to best protect your business.
Well, and one of the reasons I chose to talk to you is you guys are the largest independent company in the state and have a tremendous reputation, but you also don't have one line. You look across the whole spectrum and can pick the right thing. So I think that, being careful who you talk to is also pretty important. I would never ask you to blow your own horn, but you guys are one of the few I've found who are uniquely positioned to give you at least, here are the three options we could do, as opposed to, if it was a brand company, well, here's our program.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since, we've been around since 1915. We're the largest independent insurance agency in Arizona, and we partner with a lot of different carriers to, for various risks to various industries. So there really isn't anything that we can't help with. And, we partner with the best insurance carrier. So we're always dealing with, a A-rated carriers. So some, well-established insurance carriers that will be there, and we partner with ones that we know will pay claims. We partner with ones that we know handle claims extremely well. And we manage those claims extremely well, making sure that, we're on top of the issue, the claim, and we're making sure that our insureds are, properly advised throughout the process, because that's the most important thing as an insurance agent, is making sure that when our insureds do have a claim, that we're making sure that that claim is handled in a quick and timely fashion and appropriately.
Well said. Well, I appreciate your time today. It's an exciting time to be a business owner. It's also a pretty scary time. And I think that those who have taken the time to really listen and understand what you've had to say are much better off, because, being informed is the first step.
It absolutely is. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate the interview, and hopefully I helped you out or help someone else out there that will at least be more aware of what their risks are. And if they want to contact me, I'd be happy to help them out.
Perfect. And our audience really are looking for ways to see around the corner and make sure they're operating their business in the best possible way. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.